The Podium Pod is brought to you by The Pick and Roll. Head to pickandroll.com.au and subscribe for in-depth commentary and analysis on Aussie hoops. We're also brought to you by FBL, Fantasy Ballers League, an Australian baller lifestyle brand that aims to provide you with classics on and off the court. FBL makes a bold statement in its distinctive white, black and gold colours, with products ranging from basketball shoes to apparel, accessories and more. Be bold with gold. Check out the FBL collection at fblsport.com today. And don't miss the 2023 FIBA World Cup, with all 82 games brought to you live and exclusively across ESPN, ESPN2 and the ESPN app. Plus, all Boomers games, Team USA games and finals will be available on ESPN via KO freebies at no charge. Hello everyone and welcome to the Podium Pod, the podcast covering the 2023 FIBA World Cup across Japan, Indonesia and the Philippines, brought to you by The Pick and Roll. Adam Webster once again with you, and we have a four-person pod this time around. I'm joined by my fellow podcasters Tom Hirsch and Ben Malice from Clutch Radio, NBL.com and The Pick and Roll respectively, and we have a fourth member today, Matt Logue from News Limited Media. Matt, welcome to the show. Firstly, I'll give you the floor first. You recently touched down in Japan.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Long time listener. You guys do a terrific job for basketball, and that's the main thing. Yeah, just got in today. It's hot. I can confirm that. The Boomers are locked in. I can confirm that, and looking forward to the Finland game. Particularly for mine, all eyes are on Paddy Mills. By his lofty standards and the year he's coming off in the NBA. I know, and Tommy has stressed to me that they're only warm-up games, but at the end of the day, this team is changing, and it's Josh Giddey's team, and Paddy's role's changing. He's not going to be playing the minutes that he did when, obviously, the Boomers won the bronze. So I'm really keen to see how he comes out against Finland. I think it's integral that, from a shooting perspective, that we need Paddy to fire. And I will say that otherwise conversations will come up about, does he start? And even looking forward to Paris, like, is he on the team for Paris? But for now, we just need Paddy to aim up and we'll go from there.
My eyebrows are a little bit singed, Tom, from what I just heard. I'll go to you next because you're also in Okinawa and right of reply. Are you going to give it to me about how warm it is compared to where I am in Hobart as well?
It is damn hot here. And in the words of Robin Williams from the great movie Good Morning Vietnam, it's hot, it's damn hot. And that's the first thing that kind of struck us when we arrived. Matty, Olgun, Orlich and I all kind of came in around the same time and shared a cab from the airport. And our rooms weren't available yet when we first got to the hotel. And so there's Matty and I wandering around in 32-degree weather, trying to take in the little neighborhood around the hotel in jeans. And yes, not pleasant, but we'll get used to it. And I think we are already a little bit. But I think it's actually going to make for an interesting subplot, because the player's going to need to adjust in terms of how they look after themselves off the court. And rest and recovery is going to be key. Staying indoors as much as possible is going to be key. And just making sure they're at peak physical condition for these games, especially with the style of play where the Boomers are now going to be forced to put out on the floor with that kind of run and gun on both ends and being really active and smaller and utilizing transition. That's going to be really, really important for them in this climate.
I think last game of the group stage, we have to watch out for the air conditioners. There could be a Greg Popovich situation on our hands where Japan turned them off and we're treated to high humidity the whole time. Ben, you and I are still in the cold. However, not long, you'll be off to Manila to cover the rest of the tournament. So we'll get a really unique perspective from you. When do you head off and what are you looking forward to from your trip?
Next week, I'm just going to be honest, I'm freezing here in Melbourne. So the kid from Perth is well and truly looking forward to the hot and humid weather of Asia. So yes, heading off next week. And two things from me. One, hopefully Australia can get through the group stages and meet me in Manila. Obviously, that's what I'm hoping for. And the lads touched on the Finland game coming up this weekend. And again, I think I'm looking forward to seeing the most is how we deal with Laurie Markkinen, because I think it's going to be a nice glimpse into how we do going up against these big guys that we're going to have to combat to win the tournament. Obviously, Markkinen has a unique skill set to someone like Rudy Gobert, but we need to start getting reps against these big boys and see how that goes as we get into the tournament.
It will be an exciting couple of weeks, kicking off on Friday the 25th with Finland hosting Australia, and we've spoken about the Canada-France game directly after that at length on this show and how exciting that is. I want to get into some previews on this program, as it'll be the last one that we bring to you before the tournament officially kicks off. We obviously have a few awards that are handed out at the end, as well as the results themselves. So we have the All-Star 5, the tournament MVP, and then we have the gold, silver, and bronze or Boomers medals that are awarded at the end. So I want to go around the room and firstly get an idea of who you think the best player in this tournament will be, who will win the MVP award. For me, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is probably going to put Canada on his back. He's been scoring at an unbelievable rate in the warm-up games, and I think he's got a really good chance to make this his tournament, although Luka Doncic will provide pretty stiff competition. Ben, we'll start with you this time.
Anthony Edwards, for me, is maybe not the best player in the tournament, but we've seen Team USA in their practice games and their recent game over the weekend. He was the man that they charged with getting them back into the game when they were down late. So maybe this is my basketball man crush coming out with Edwards. I love his game, but I think the tournament, maybe not necessarily in terms of wins and losses, but in terms of brand and shots and points per game and the MVP award you mentioned, I think Edwards is the one that we'll be looking up at in 2 to 3 weeks, and the whole basketball universe is going to get a nice awakening to everything he can do scoring the ball.
Tommy, who's your MVP for this tournament?
I think Ant Edwards is a great call, and I've also thought a bit about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, as you said, and Luka. I've eliminated SGA and Luka because I actually don't think they make the top 4. And I think you need to be in that medal round to win the MVP of the tournament. So to me, it came down to Edwards or the guy that I've ultimately gone with. And you can call this a homer pick if you want, but I've gone with Josh Giddey only because I think he threatens to average close to a triple-double in this tournament. And those numbers are going to be eye-popping when all is said and done. And if the Boomers can actually make a run all the way to that gold medal game, whether they win it or not, I think he has to be in serious consideration for that award. And you do also find sometimes the American players' numbers get diluted by the depth that they have, and quite often the MVP goes to a player from another team, whereas the USA has pretty good representation on the All-Star 5 typically. So that's where my head's at. Josh Giddey.
Maddie, you've heard our predictions. What's yours?
I like Josh Giddey, but that's, I don't know if it's a dream. Like I'll let Tommy go with that. I think it's Shai. And I think just the sheer load that he'll carry, hopefully for this Canadian side, they've sort of been in the wilderness for a little bit. They've never really had their best roster, and it's a shame that we're not going to see Jamal Murray. But I think Shai can do it. I think Tommy makes a good point though. It's probably going to be of the players that the top 4, the top 3. So I rate France highly and probably give a big shout out to Evan Fournier. I just think he's FIBA proven, and he's a guy that potentially could be in the mix if France go deep.
If Canada do go deep, as far as SGA is concerned, they will have to beat obviously France in the group stages and then probably Spain in the second round. So it's important to note that you've got to go through both of those teams. And if SGA can lead Canada to wins against those two teams, then I think it's in the box seat. Absolutely. We'll move to the All-Star 5, Tom, and I think you can probably throw out a smoky or two here, but I imagine that a lot of the names that we're looking for in the All-Star 5 are going to be the ones that we brought up in the MVP. So I'll ask a different question. Is there anyone that we haven't mentioned yet that you think can make the All-Star 5 in the tournament?
There's one guy that I've got as my 5th player. So I spoke about Edwards, SGA, Giddey, and Luka, and my 5th guy is Jaren Jackson Jr. From the USA, because I feel like he's going to be their best big man. He's going to lead the tournament in shot blocking. And USA, I feel like, as unproven as they are, they've come together nicely enough that they should make a strong run of that gold. And if they do end up taking gold, they'll probably get 2 players into that All-Star 5 when all is said and done.
Have you got any smokies for us, Tom? Is there anyone at that next level down that just could explode and have a great tournament and sneak into the All-Star 5 over the 5 players you've mentioned? Because I've got exactly the same 5.
Not really, only because, you look at the teams that are likely to be there in that medal round. I don't think Spain has a standout player in this version of their roster like they've had in years past. I mean, Rudy Gobert I consider, but that's far from a smoky. Obviously, you could consider FIBA Fournier as well, as Matty's done. But I don't think there's anyone else that we're not thinking of. Like, to me, Giddy's kind of the smoky here, to be honest, because he's just unproven in this format. But I think, as we've spoken about at length, he is going to be a feature of what the Boomers do and how far they go in this tournament.
Matty, anyone else that you think could make it, or any smokies that might be able to sneak in?
Oh, potentially, but I've gone with Giddy, Luca, Fournier, Gobert, Edwards.
Two Frenchmen.
Yeah, I'm high on them. I think that the start of that game against the Boomers the other day, I know the Boomers found their defensive identity and they rallied a bit, but at the start I thought this is going to be a massacre. And France are always strong at this level, really good. So yeah, I can see why. I could easily see two of them in there at the end.
FIBA Fournier has been on a bit of a tear the last 4 years in international play. He was, 20 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists in the previous World Cup. In the Olympics, he was 19-3 and 2.5 assists. And then recently in the European qualifiers, the only thing that's really dipped is his points per game. And that's probably not really all that much of a concern, particularly in qualifiers where you tend to play a deeper team. He'll have all the minutes he can handle in this tournament, Ben, and proves to be a definite contender for one of the best players in this tournament if France go far.
Yeah, I agree with Matty. I think the France-Australia game on Sunday, it was good that the Aussies came back and won, but I got the impression that France put the cue in the rack after proving their point early. So I think that speaks to the French team. The lads covered that. I think one name that is a legit smoky is Cat. So I think Karl Anthony Towns is going to put up a ton of points in these games. If Dominican Republic are going to win anything, it's because Cat goes nuts, putting up 30 points a game. And again, I can see us looking up. He's averaging 33 points. The team's a bit av. They get into the second round of the group stage maybe. And that might be enough for him to get a statistical case to be on those all-star teams. But if we're talking about players that are going to be playing for medals, then the lads have hit it on the head. And I like the selection of Triple J because I think he is probably the favourite in my eyes to get that big man spot because America's probably going to win the tournament and he's their best big man. So, yeah, they're the two names to me. Triple J is the most likely one, but Cat if that team can win a few games.
The Dominican Republic are an interesting one because they played both Canada and also Spain quite close in qualifying games, which, is no slouch. I'm not saying that either of those teams were going at full tilt, but if you look at the group they're in, Angola, the Philippines and Italy, it's not the strongest group in the tournament. And if you look even over at Group B, South Sudan, Serbia, China, Puerto Rico, it could be a situation where Cat is the second best player across those two groups to Luka and only has to get past Serbia, and only, I say that in jest, but only has to get past Serbia in order to advance deep in this tournament. So I think it's a really good call, Ben. The other one I want to mention is real smokies for a breakout tournament. Players that are potentially in a role that enables them to, exceed. And I want to bring up Duop Reith here because he had a really good qualifying, a really good warm-up round, and he was often in Australia's top 2 scorers. And Ben, he's got the biggest role on the team, I would say, next to Josh Giddey because of Jock Landale's injury. So Duop Reith has to, be able to defend the best centers in the world across this tournament. And if he does that, then, he could really stake his claim for a roster spot in an NBA team eventually, or even a 10-day contract and get into a position where he's able to realize a bit more of his dream later in his career.
Correct. And I don't bring the mood down, but I think that's the biggest question for the Boomers because losing Landale is a massive loss. And again, we saw his dunk on Sunday against France, and there were some nice highlights of some nice plays. But again, I do question whether Reith is going to stand up when we're playing France, Team USA, Spain in these big high leverage games. Again, taking the athlete's mindset, he's got the opportunity he's always wanted, starting for the Boomers most likely against the best teams in the world. Like you say, Adam, a chance to go up against NBA caliber all-star players and prove he's got his wares. And again, as the Australian, I hope that he can pull his weight and pull through and really elevate his career. Although I think we do need to say that is the biggest concern, at least in my eyes, on the Boomers roster heading into this tournament now that Landale has been ruled out.
Matty, I mean this fondly for all four of us. We're all hoop sickos at the end of the day. We love really, really good basketball, and we love to watch basketball that maybe other people wouldn't want to watch. You're in Okinawa. You're going to get to see a lot of games across the next week. Is there one that doesn't involve the Boomers that you want to call out that you're really excited to see that people are going to want to tune in on ESPN and watch?
Like, obviously Luca. Like,
Yep.
And the fact, we're here, and I first got off the plane, and the first big sign is big picture of Luca, and to be honest, he's everywhere. They're obsessed, and fair enough. So to be honest, just to be able to watch that in the flesh, I think would be pretty cool, and just to see the crowd's reaction. And I know that the locals, the Japanese here, like, they're obsessed, that they love him. So yeah, I hope he puts on a show. I think the World Cup needs Luca to really go to town. And then potentially, in a crossover with the Boomers, just given the history with that bronze medal and the sledge with Josh Green, his teammate, like, I just think it'll add so many cool storylines that will just really add to this World Cup. And I will joke, and Tommy can confirm this as well. I'm really high on Duop Reith because we can confirm his secret weapon. His secret weapon is caramel latte, and I'm telling you, he even said it's the best coffee he's ever had. So if that's what's fueling the big man, I reckon he's in for a big one.
Mm-hmm. Can confirm that.
There'd be a lot of Melbourneians that'd be turning over in their beds right now listening to this, very concerned about caramel lattes and wanting
it's a milkshake apparently, but anyway,
wanting a small magic or something, the sort of thing that you order in Melbourne if you're ordering coffee. Tom, you've been in Okinawa for a few hours. I want to talk to you about the vibe of the place and what you're looking forward to most in your time there, apart from Disneyland.
And apart from my caramel lattes.
Yes.
Look, I'm actually really intrigued as to how this small ball lineup of the Boomers is going to work, because they've had to pivot late, and it's not ideal, but it's something that I actually asked Jack White about today. Wanted to get a chance to speak with him briefly. And their biggest thing is they love the versatility of this roster. So to me, when you've got a number of those kind of 6'6", 6'8", 6'9", mobile, versatile, switchable defenders, that's going to be a real weapon for the Aussies. And if they can make it work, they're going to get a really good test on Friday against Larry Market and how to slow him down. They're going to get another good test against Luca in the second round, hopefully. That's to me something that I'm most looking forward to seeing, just how that plays out. But just to come back to your previous question, Adam, one more smoky for you, not in Okinawa, based in Manila, and I'm going to keep it local for our local Australian and NBL fans, and that's Flynn Cameron on the New Zealand Tall Blacks.
Wow.
And I think the young man who is getting rave reviews from everyone I speak to about him, he's got a real opportunity with the Webster brothers not on that roster to play a feature role. And Ben, you talk about the opportunity to go up against proven NBA talent. Well, he's in the pool against the USA, so he's going to get that opportunity firsthand. And even going against Greece, I think this young man's going to surprise a lot of people with how versatile he is, how strong he is, and how athletic he is. And that's going to get people to kind of follow him as his year progresses and he comes back and joins Melbourne United in the NBL. So just another one to keep an eye on. Matty,
you on board with that?
I like that. A bit of love for the Tall Blacks as well. I don't know, we're very pro the Boomers and we forget about our neighbours and I feel like it's a really tough group for them, obviously, like extremely difficult, but I think that's a really good shout, and a bit of NBL love too. Tommy never goes astray.
I have to, right?
No, you don't have to. It's a really good call.
And lastly, I want to throw in South Sudan in there as well. I'd love to see them progress to the next round. There's a lot of players that Australians are really familiar with, Ben, and a lot of players that we cover in the NBL. And it'd just be a fantastic story if they're able to get over one of China or Puerto Rico and join Serbia in that second round, which is, a possibility. Their ranking is 64, but they play a lot better than that.
Well, I think the cooler thing for South Sudan is the fact that they could qualify for the Olympics as that top-ranked African team. So obviously at the World Cup, you want to have a good showing, you want to have a great performance. But again, could you imagine that team playing at Olympic Games in 12 months? And that's obviously tied to their performance at the World Cup. So yeah, it's a really big couple of weeks. They can get a couple of wins, hopefully. And their draw is not going to win the tournament, but they can definitely get a couple of wins. And yeah, imagine looking up in 12 months' time and seeing the Boomers play South Sudan at the Olympics, for example. And that's amazingly a pretty realistic scenario that could be see happen over the next few weeks.
That would be pretty incredible. Speaking of incredible, let's get to the gold, silver, and bronze predictions for the tournament. Matty, I'll start with you. Who do you think is going to finish first, second, and third in this one?
This is what I'm hoping, but we'll see what happens. But US, I think, will win.
Yep.
Boomers second, and France third.
Tom?
Similar. I've got the US also winning against the Boomers in the gold medal game. But I've got Spain surprising some people and unfortunately making another run to that medal round. And hopefully it's us they face in the semi-final, and that's the team that we beat to get into that gold medal game finally. But I just feel like people are understating or underestimating Spain after their disappointment in Tokyo. But that's a team that just knows how to win together. So I think that they'll be there or thereabouts when it's all said and done.
Ben, where are you at?
Yeah, very similar to the fellas. I think US is definitely going to get to the final. Their side of the brackets is quite easy, to be fair.
Yep.
And then on the other side, it comes down to the Aussies, Canada, and France. I'm going to say France. I think France is the best team out of all those three teams, as much as it pains me, with the Boomers sliding in there and playing for bronze again. So I think it's going to be a France-US final. And my prediction is that the US isn't going to win the tournament. I think France beats them in the final.
Wow, that's huge. Well, for me, it's the USA gold, silver to Australia, and bronze to Canada. I think SGA can really carry his team on and have one hell of a run. That's been the Podium Pod prior to the World Cup of 2023 across Indonesia, Philippines, and Japan. Matty, thanks so much for being with us today. Enjoy Okinawa and enjoy your caramel lattes.
Yeah, I'm not having those ones. We'll save those for DeWop and Tommy. That's all good.
Don't look at me, mate.
No, I'm joking.
And Ben, safe flight over to Manila and enjoy your time over there.
Thank you. I've packed the sunscreen. I'm ready for some warm weather. Get me out of Melbourne.
I'll have to go to a tanning bed because I'll stay in Hobart the whole time. Thanks very much for listening. We'll be back again after Australia's first game against Finland on Friday night. See you then.